my research concerns the relationship between price and quality. There's a long line of work on the fact that price functions as an extrinsic signal that influences perceived quality. We all know when we look at a product in a supermarket, we make assumptions that the higher quality product will be priced higher, and we use price as a signal to indicate quality. That line of research going back to Tibor Shatovsky from 1944 and even before. But the question that we've all been asking, and also that others in this session have been addressing, is about intrinsic quality, and specifically the question of when price signals are removed, do consumers actually experience the more expensive goods as being better? And the way that this has generally been approached is with blind tasting experiments. But before I move on to talking about blind tasting experiments, mine and other people's, I want to take a step back and ask, what is quality? No easy answer to this question. There has been a lot of use of the term quality in wine economics papers, among other areas of economics, and there's, I think the term gets sort of used differently by different researchers. So in some cases, hedonic ratings and blind tastings are used to indicate quality. In other cases, we rely on experts' ratings, assuming that some smaller group of consumers or some smaller group of tasters have access to some special characteristics that everyday consumers don't have, and that therefore, let's say, expert ratings are the best indicator of quality. Another way of measuring quality is revealed consumer behavior. How much of a wine that people actually drink at a table, for example, could be measured, and that could be used as a proxy for quality. But I'm going to use, I'm going to argue, I'm going to try to convince you that the only valid way we can define quality is from the point of view of consumers, and from a point of view of consumers as a whole, not some small subset of consumers who are experts. One reason for this is that in my research and other people's research, it's been consistently shown that experts are no more accurate or consistent than non-experts in tasting experiments. They have different preferences, but they don't seem to be more consistent or less consistent. So there's sort of, I think there's a lack of a rigorous reason why we should rely on a small group of a subset of consumers who don't share necessarily share the taste preferences of the larger group. Of course, it's very well documented, the effects, placebo effects and nocebo effects of knowing price and extrinsic signals on people's experience of wine and other products. So I think we can all agree that judging quality with the knowledge of price is not going to yield results that are either consistent or externally valid. So I'm going to go on with the notion of quality as best measured by hedonic ratings by consumers, by a large group of consumers that's representative of the entire group of consumers for some given product. So the question is then, do price and quality correlate? In Plasman, that's been mentioned by other presenters here, and my work, as well as Ashton in 2014, more or less replicating this finding. And it's important to note with Plasman that there was actually an inverse correlation between price and quality. Not just in my 2008 study, but also in Plasman's fMRI study. So she found actually that there was that when people were not given any price information, this is kind of a footnote to that paper actually, but when people were not given any price information at all about the wines, people significantly preferred the cheaper wines to the more expensive wines in her tasting. So in my 2008 paper, with 6,000 data points, we found a small but significant inverse correlation between price and preference amongst consumers as a whole. Amongst the smaller subset of experts, we found no significant price-quality correlation. And Ashton, excuse me, Ashton last year more or less replicated that result, finding an inverse correlation in 2 of 4 trials and no correlation in the other 2 between price and quality as measured, quality as defined in the way that I've asked you to sort of basically, I mean, I'd actually be interesting during the question and answer session. I'd love to hear if people want to sort of debate this idea of quality. But again, assuming that quality is defined by a consumer panel that's representative of consumers as a whole, we've basically seen this inverse correlation again and again. So the question is, when I first did this 2008 experiment, I thought maybe this inverse correlation was just a spurious result. Like, why would we can sort of imagine why it might be that price and quality don't correlate positively, but why would they correlate inversely? This seems like a strange phenomenon, sort of on its face. I'm going to just skip over this because we don't have much time. But in fact, when I saw the Ashton paper in 2014, and looking more closely at Plasman and other results, as well as running some of my own experiments to sort of test this phenomenon more precisely, it replicates again and again. So again and again, we see this inverse correlation, not just no correlation, an inverse correlation. And so I've been interested in the last couple of years, specifically in getting to the bottom of what the inverse correlation is all about. So I've nicknamed the phenomenon price-quality inversion. And the 4 research questions that I've been working on are, first, 4 hypotheses. 1, the hypothesis number 1, price and quality are inversely correlated for wine generally, and quality as I've defined it. Hypothesis number 2, price-quality inversion also characterizes other consumer markets for experienced goods. So I want to move beyond wine, and I'm going to present research here that's moving beyond wine and testing for this phenomenon in other consumer markets. Hypothesis number 3, price-quality inversion occurs at some price intervals, along some price intervals, but not along others, and thus is nonlinear on the price spectrum. And hypothesis number 4, the price-quality curve has both upward and downward sloping portions. In other words, price and quality correlate positively along some portion of the price spectrum and negatively along some other portion. So first, on the first hypothesis, testing the price-quality inversion hypothesis in the consumer wine market, there's been so much presented already on this topic, and my previous papers have found this effect, so I'm not going to spend too long on this. I'm going to just take you through an example of that. This is data going back to my 2008 large kind of experiment, just picking out a few different examples, and this is just one of them. Basically pairs of wines where people were tasting head-to-head these wines, and where there were many data points. So here we had 133 subjects between ages 21 and 88 tasting Dom Perignon against Domaine Saint-Michel sparkling wine, Champagne, Méthode Champenoise sparkling wine from Washington State. $125 versus $12, and here we had 66% of 133 subjects choosing the Domaine Saint-Michel as preferable. And when we pick out other pairs like this, and when we picked out other pairs like this, arbitrarily, this result sort of occurs again and again. So this is, I think, replicable. I did another experiment similar to this with Alsace. Alsace Gewürztraminer 2010 picked an arbitrary vintage and appellation, and found that that approximately the same 2/3 preferred the cheaper wine to the more expensive wine, controlling for other attributes of the wine. And the way that I've been running a series of experiments like this that I won't take you through all of, but the way that I've been actually choosing wines so as to be as arbitrary as possible, as random as possible in the choice of wines, is to go into a store and you pick an appellation and vintage beforehand. You go into the store and pick the most expensive and the cheapest version of that same appellation and vintage you can find, and then run that on a bunch of subjects. So the question is now, does price quality inversion hold in other experience goods markets? And when I say experience goods, I mean markets for products where there's not full information on the part of the consumer until the tasting. So you're getting access to the product, information about the product and so forth, but you're not actually able to taste the product until you take it home, buy it, take it home and eat it or drink it. First one here is this is data from a Thrillist consumer cola blind tasting. Here we have nine brands of cola, ranging from 25 cents per can to $2.53 per can equivalent, 12-ounce equivalent. I broke them down here into premium and mass market brand. There's kind of a bimodal distribution of price, as you can see. The mass market brands ranging from 25 cents to 50 cents, and then the premium brands $1 and up, more or less. So here we have an overall, with a linear regression, we have an overall inverse correlation that's pretty clear. The rating, the top 2 rated colas in this blind tasting are Pepsi and Nice brand cola, which is like a generic brand, 25 cents and 46 cents a can. And the bottom 2 rated colas in this tasting are $2.53 and $1.82. These premium colas that you kind of get at Whole Foods or some fancy local market. The R squared in the regression, on this OLS regression is 0.56, and it's sort of a decent fit. But actually, when I tried second and third order polynomials, we got even better fits. I don't have time here to talk about why I think this particular type of nonlinear relationship would be found here, but I do think that there's a reason for that. And then one other type of test here I'm running is just comparing the 4 premiums against the 4 discounts against the 5 premiums, just comparing the 2 means with an unpaired t-test gets significance at 5%, the average here being 61 to 41 in terms of rating. These are ratings on a 100-point scale. Now we have vodka data. This is a New York Times tasting, so now we're dealing with experts rather than consumer panel. There are 12 brands of vodka in this tasting, ranging from $34 at the top down to $13. Not as good a fit on the regression line, but the overall trend is certainly there. Once again, you have the most expensive vodka finishing, 2 most expensive vodkas finishing last and second to last in the tastings. The cheapest vodka, Smirnoff, finishing first. And salmon. So the last product I'm going to present data from is supermarket salmon. Okay. So here we have 10 brands, I think is this right? 10 brands of salmon. I've marked them as wild and farmed. So there are 2 categories. The wild and farm categories, while they do kind of correspond to premium and non-premium, they don't perfectly match up with price. So we have one farm brand that's $17 premium priced, and you have Costco brand wild that's more expensive than Costco's farm salmon, but still less than some of the other farms. So it's not perfect correspondence. But I've marked the F's on this graph. The F's are the farmed and the W's are the wild. And so once again, you have the cheapest salmon in the whole group finishing first in the blind tasting. The last the next to last is the most expensive. The last is not the most expensive, it's the Costco brand Wild, but you have actually, within the Costco brand, you have the farmed finishing first and the wild finishing last. The trend, once again, showing this price quality inversion effect, and comparing the two means, again, this time is significant at 1%, farm mean versus wild mean, obviously small sample, but the effect is there, and then once again, the polynomials with exponential terms are yielding better fits than the linear regression. And I'm not going to get to this point here in this talk, but I just to say for a moment what my kind of explanation is of this phenomenon, why I think it happens. In mature industries like wine, vodka, cola, and salmon, you have leading producers that have been optimizing for years for taste and have basically honed production so it's efficient and it's cheaper and it's catered to majority taste. And so this is actually the point of economic progress in consumer products market as far as I'm concerned. So it shouldn't be surprising that this happens, that you have leading producers like Pepsi making products that please the most number of people, and that over time they're able to integrate technology and produce that product efficiently in a way that such that it gets cheaper and cheaper year after year. And so what do you do if you're a premium competitor and you want to enter this market? It's really hard to enter in the sort of mid-level mainstream and compete with Pepsi. And so you're basically, most appealing choice is to enter at a higher price point with a premium product. But if the leading product at the lower price is already optimized for taste and already pleasing the maximum number of people possible, essentially, then your only choice is to differentiate your product quality-wise by what I call differentiating downward, or making a product that will actually please fewer people at first. And so, and then the challenge, of course, is to either find a niche, find a smaller group of consumers, premium consumers, let's say, who actually prefer the qualities that most people dislike, or to try to enter in a way that convinces consumers over time to adopt, to take qualities that they initially find less pleasurable, and over time to develop taste for those qualities and to sort of convert them into people who like these qualities. So you have this movement over time in that way that I think you observe in the wine market. Just at the exact moment that all the wine experts stop liking, just at the moment that all the mainstream wine drinkers start liking oaky California Chardonnay, all the wine experts start hating it and move to Gruner Veltliner. So you have this this constant kind of churn of taste, I think. So that's my kind of preliminary explanation for some of these results. Thank you.